Good morning, students. Welcome back to the class. We are going to look at chapter 9 today. It is going to be on determining cost, budget, and earned value. It is going to be a class with regards to the calculation on your cost and budget in the planning section of your project, right? So, there is no much of calculation because it basically is aligning with whatever budget, whatever cost that you are implying in your project for the group assignment. So we are going to look at how you get all these numbers, how you get your costs, how you determine your budget, and how you gain your earned value, right? So for our class today, the learning outcome is going to be on estimate the cost of activities, aggregate the total budgeted cost, develop a time-phased baseline budget, describe how to accumulate actual costs, determine the earned value of work performed, calculate and analyze key project performance measures, discuss and apply approaches to control the project budget, explain the importance of managing cash flow. Okay, so this is your learning outcome, and this will imply in your chapter concepts as well. So you are going to estimate the cost of activities, a time phase baseline budget, your earned value of the work performed, your and cost performance. You are going to analyze on your cost performance, forecasting project costs at completion, controlling project costs, and managing cash flow. Right. So we are going to look at it on each of the elements, and we are going to determine how it is done. Right. Okay. So the first one, estimate activity costs. When you studied earlier, when you look at your financial accounting, when you look at your um, all these finances, you see that you have two costs. Okay, fixed cost and variable cost. But this cost is called activity cost, because when you speak about fixed cost or variable cost, it can be implemented when you have an organization. Okay, you have your labors, your fixed labors, you have your staffs, you have your machines, you have your equipments, and all that will be something that is fixed. And then you will have your variable cost depending on your orders. You will have your materials, you will have your transport, and all that. But when you speak about a project, it is called an activity. Okay, when you speak about the project, it is called an activity because the project means that it will end in a certain amount of time when the objective is met, right? I have told you that a project um, is will be ended when it meets the objective, when the objective is met, when the final mission or vision or the scope of the project is accomplished, it will end at a certain point. But when you speak about an organization, it does not end, right? It will go through each and every month, each and every day. You will gain your profit, you will gain your shares and all that, and it will be continuous until you decided that you are going to close down your organization. But for your project, it is not like that. You achieve your objective, then you close your project. It is only for a short period of time, and when the objective is met, you just close down the project and you move to the next project. So when you speak about the cost that is going to be incurred in that particular project, it is about activity cost, right? You have your labors, you have your materials, you have your equipments, you have your facilities, your subcontractors and consultant, travel and contingency. Okay, all this is something that is going to happen in a short period of time, and once it is done, you will automatically set down the project, you will automatically close down the project, and you will move to the next one. So labor is all your staffs, right? You have your staffs, you have your first level staff, you have second level staffs and all that. Your materials will be whatever raw materials that you are going to use for your project. The equipments, the machinery, the technologies that you are going to be using is called the equipment. And then you have your facilities. Okay, whatever facilities that you are going to have, if you are going to have a building, if you are going to have a place to store the materials, if you have something to build, to assemble, to test the project and all that, is the facilities. And then you have your subcontractors and consultant. Do you want to outsource any of the project? Do you want to have any subcontractors? Do you want any labors, daily wages labors? Okay, whatever that you are going to have on a daily basis, or if you are planning to outsource any of the activities, you will have your subcontractors and the consultant. The consultants is for you to have any expertise opinion, right? If you are not sure on a particular activity, or if you are unsure on a particular task, then you have your consultant, you speak to them, you get their expertise on the matter, and then you do your work accordingly. And then you have travel, right? You want to, your transport, you are going to travel from a local place to a foreign place, or you want to even travel from a state to state, or from a specific place to another place. You will have your travel expenses. And then you have your contingency. Contingency means it is a reserve fund set aside to cover unexpected situation that may come up during the project, right? When you are doing a project, you will allocate all your costs first, and then you will set aside a contingency fund. This fund will be used when you are going to have something that is unexpected. Okay, right now you have planned that your labor is going to be 5%, and then for you only allocate your budget for labor for only that particular 5%. But let's say time is getting delayed and you want to hire another person, right? You want to add on one person, you want to add on 2%, then you will use this contingency fund, right? This contingency fund will be helping you during an immediate situation, or during a emergency situation, right? When you have something that comes up which was not planned earlier and it came up. Okay, now you, for you, in order to sort it out, in order for you to achieve the objective of the overall project, for you to complete the overall project, you will use the contingency fund to support you on that particular cost. Okay, so it is very important that even in your life you need to set a contingency fund. You know that you want to study, you know you want to have your food, you know you want your transport, but then you need to have your contingency fund in case of accident, in case of any circumstances that you need a certain amount of money, you will be using from this contingency fund. Okay, so contingency fund is something that is very important even in your life. When you're a student, you are studying, so your plan is that you will have your money for your food, your transport, for your stays, your hostel, and then for your education only. But then if anything that happens out of the circumstances, for instance that you want to visit a hospital, for instance if you want to have a medical checkup and all that, you will use money from the contingency fund. You don't want to disturb your parents, you don't want to burden your parents, so all this contingency fund you keep aside, right? Similar to savings, you will keep it aside, and when you have all these circumstances, you will use this contingency fund. Okay, when you have this contingency fund, you don't have to disturb anyone, you don't have to burden anyone, because you know how you are going to sort the matter out, because you already have something called as your savings, as a sinking fund, as a contingency fund that you have kept aside for you to use in the raining days. Okay, so the good practice is that you have the person responsible estimate costs, use historical data to inform current project, be reasonable and realistic, right? Estimate near terms activities more accurately, and then you have elaborate other costs as additional information becomes available. Okay, so when you are estimating your activity cost, you need to have the right person, the person with the right skills, the right knowledge to estimate the cost. You cannot have someone who does not know um, how to bargain, or you don't or someone that does not know what certain materials will be costing, right? He does not know the industrial price, he does not know the um, product actual price and all that. Okay, you cannot have this kind of person. You need to have a responsible person with the right amount of skills and knowledge about the particular project, about the particular products or materials that you are going to use, so that he or she will be able to bargain, will be able to seek out for the best price when you need to estimate the cost. Okay, and then you need to use historical data to inform current project. When you are using historical data, it is very easy, and it is very convenient, because you could learn from your past mistakes, you can learn from the mistakes made in the past project, because you have the current data, The historical data is the current data that you are going to use for the current project in regards to all your past projects or all your past purchases and all that. So you will have the right amount of knowledge and the right amount of cost that is going to be incurred. And then you need to be reasonable and realistic. Okay, when you are determining your cost, you need to be reasonable, right? Because if, let's say, if you are going to um, buy clothing for your hari raya, right? Some of you will be having a budget of 200 per clothing. Some of you will have a budget of 200 for three clothings, right? It depends on individuals, but it need to be reasonable, right? You don't want to spend too much, you don't want to have excessive spendage, right? You want to keep it in control, you want it to be realistic and reasonable. Because when you are doing a project, right, a project incurs a lot of cost, not only from labors, then you have materials and all that, right? I have listed down labors, materials, equipment, facilities. Okay, it will be varying from activity to activity. Each activity, task A will have a cost of 20,000, task B will have a cost of 30,000 and all that. So it is important that it is reasonable, right? When it is reasonable, it is automatically realistic because you could achieve the cost within the budget that you have planned. Okay, and then you need to estimate near term activities more accurately. You need to figure out which activity falls under this category, which activity falls under the next category, and you need to be accurate, right? You need to figure out how you are going to sort your activities in an accurate way so that the cost is not overwhelming, the cost can be kept in control, and you can achieve your objective the sooner um, in a less cost, okay, in a reasonable and realistic cost. And then you elaborate other costs as additional information becomes available, right? If you want to purchase something, let's say if you want to purchase a machinery, and then in the machinery you need to implement a software, right? So you only know the price of the machinery, but you are not clear on the price of software yet. Because when you go and seek for the price of machinery, when you speak to the consultant, when you speak to the person that is selling you, right, then only you will get the information in regards to the software. Okay, first you need to go and seek for the machine first. Once you seek for the machine, once you have gained information on the machines, then you will gain information on the software. So the pricing for the software will not be determined first, it will be determined later on. Okay, it will be determined later on when you have additional information that is going to support for you, right? Now you have the price for the machine, and the software for the machine will only be known after that you have purchased the machine, or after you have spoken to the promoter, after you have spoken to the promoter. Okay, after that only you will have the direct information and the costing for that particular software. So initially you will only have the um, pricing for the machine, and later when you spoke to the person in charge or the company, then you will get the information on the software that is going to be implemented, right? Next slide will be on the consumer market study project estimated cost. Okay, this example is something that we have used throughout the chapter. You can go and view the um, work schedule or the network diagram in your past chapters, and you relate it with this um, consumer market study project estimated cost. Okay, you have your Susan, your Steve, I hope you remember um, this network diagram we have seen throughout the classes. All the slides will have this, right? So for you to figure out who is Susan, who is Steve, who is Andy and all that, you go and view your past slides and relate it with the current slide. All right, your past slide from the chapter 5, 6, 7 and all that, you will have the work breakdown structure and the network diagram. Okay, make sure you go through it and then you relate it with this so that it is easier for your understanding. It is easier for you to figure out how um, this estimated cost is made. All right, so when you have figured out your activity, when you have your activity sequence, when you have your work breakdown structure, it is easy for you to break down the cost. Okay, your budget, your planned cost, how much is it going to be? It is easy for you to estimate because you have your labor, you have hired your laborers, you have hired your team members, right? You have hired whoever is going to be in which position, who is going to be the team leader and all that. You have your project team members figure out. Okay, once you have figured out everything about your laborers, about your staffs, about your team members, then you know what is their pricing is going to be, what is the rate that they are expecting as per their pay. You have their pays figure out. Okay, so that means in your estimated cost you have all your activities, you have all the names here, right? Let me see. Okay, you have all your activities here, you have all the names here, and then you have the work days, right? When you seen your work breakdown structure, when you seen your network diagram, you have seen the work days that is going to be implemented for each of the person to finish their activity, right? So you have your work days and then you have your labor rate per day. Okay, this labor rate is per day, so 260 per day times with 3, right? You have 3 working days, labor rate times with the work days, you will get your labor cost. Okay, this is the total cost for this particular working day. So that means activity 1, identifying target consumers, will be done by Susan for 3 days. She is going to do this job for 3 days and the rate per day is 260. She is going to get a pay of 260 per day and the overall pay for her is going to be 780. 260 times 3, you will get 780. Okay, and then if you don't have any material cost here, you don't have any travel cost here, then you just bring down the 780 here, you bring it back here. Okay, because you don't have any material cost, you don't have any travel cost, then you just supposed to bring it this number to here. And it goes similar to all the other activities like chapter activity 2. You have 10 working days, 260 times 10, you have 2600. If you don't have material cost, you don't have travel cost, you just bring back the number here. And then you have activity 3. In activity 3, it's a pilot test questionnaire. When it involves questionnaire, most of the time the questionnaire is done physically or it is done through the Google form. Now, if the form is done in the physical way, if you want your questionnaire to be answered in a physical way, then you are going to print down all the questionnaires and then you are going to give it out to each and every individual. So, for this activity 3, Susan will be working for 20 days. She is going to identify all the respondents for her questionnaire and it is going to be 260 per day as well. And the total labor cost is going to be 5200, right? 20 times 260 is 5200. And then you don't have material cost here, but you have a travel cost, right? Because Susan is going to travel, right, from one place to another place to find her respondents, then she is going to charge you 3000 for all that travel. Okay, this can be accumulated from oil and gas, her time, okay, whatever cost that is in regards to the travel. She is going to travel for 20 days and then her travel cost is 3000. So it means each day um, she will be using a fixed fuel rate of 150 ringgit per day. Okay, $150, right? If here it's all in dollars, so it means for one day it is going to be $150. So for the third one, you need to plus out with 5200 plus with 3000, it is going to be 8200. So this is how you get all your cost figure out. Okay, this is estimated, this is not the actual cost, it is estimated cost, right? This is something that is going to be estimated before you start purchasing or before you start implementing. So when you estimate that Susan is going to give a labor rate, she is going to agree for the labor rate of 260. You have all this total cost figure out. So let's say when you hiring Susan, Susan says that okay, I can do this work for $240. Okay, I don't need 240. I'm okay with 200. I don't need 260. I'm okay with 240. Then your actual cost will be changing, right? It will be changing to 240, but that is all in the actual cost. In the estimated cost, you are going to remain a few amount extra. You are going to determine a few amount extra because you don't want it um, um, to be exceeding later on. You want this planned cost to be something that is going to be already significantly higher than your actual cost, so that it is shown that you are going under budget and not over the budget, right? You don't want your project to go over budget. You want it to be somewhere similar to the planned budget or somewhere lesser than your planned budget. You don't want to go over budget because it is going to create a lot of rivalries, right? It is going to create a lot of situation and unwanted situation among your project sponsor. So you want to ensure it is going staying in the planned cost or the estimated cost. So you ensure that you are increasing slightly all these costs, so that when you are doing your project later on, the cost is staying somewhere similar to whatever that you have estimated and does not go over the budget. Okay, right. So once you have figured out your estimated cost, then you have your aggregate total budgeted cost. Okay, aggregated means gross budget. Okay, you do not use any discounts. You do have not negotiate with anyone yet. This is something that is going to be gross budget. Okay, aggregate total budgeted cost allocates total project cost to the appropriate work packages, will establish a total budgeted cost for each work package. There are two approaches to establish TBC for each work package, top down and bottom up. Often the sum of the initial estimated cost is greater than the sponsor's budget sponsor. Several iterations of working out the cost may be required to reduce the cost to within an acceptable level. The figure on the side illustrates the cost allocation for $600 project. The costs are assigned to each work package. When the budget for all the work packages are summed up, they cannot exceed the total budgeted cost, right? So this means when you are doing a project, if the project sponsor says that he could give you only 400,000, okay, then you sum it up a little bit and you make it 600,000. Okay, for sure you cannot go from 400 to 600. Let's say um, your project sponsor is giving you 500,000, then you estimate that there is going to be plus minus of 100,000, and then you create 600,000, right? So that means project sponsors agrees to give you 500,000, but you are accumulating for 600,000 because you don't want later on it is going over the budget. So you are going to plan out with 600,000 first. Okay, so because the sum of the initial estimated cost is greater than the sponsor's budget sponsor, right? So from 500,000 you make it to 600,000. You want to plan it for 600,000 because later on you will know which part to reduce to meet that actual 500,000 that the project sponsor is going to give, right? So you establish a TBC for each work package. TBC means total budgeted cost, and then you determine the process top down or bottom up. That means, are you going to start from top to bottom or bottom to up? How are you going to allocate your cost? If sum of initial estimates exceeds sponsor budget, the reduced cost and recalculate, right? Because now you have put here 600, but your sponsor's budget is only 500,000. That means once you have figured it out at all this level for 600,000, then later you will reduce that 100,000 from each of the particular boxes. It is easy for you to determine it that way so that you can ensure the budget is stayed within the planned budget. Okay, the cost is stayed within the planned budget. Okay, now packaging machine project aggregate total budget cost. Okay, this is the network diagram for the packaging machine project. You have your activity number here, you have your duration here. Okay, Now, when you create the work breakdown structure, you will put in the packaging machine because the task is packaging machine, and then you will put in the key task: design, build, and install and test. And then you will allocate this 100,000. You will break it down into all these three, right? So for designing, it will be lesser because this is something that is going to be in terms of design only. You are not implementing it, you are not building it, you are just designing it. So it will be 24,000. And then you have build, which is 60,000. It is definitely going to be higher because you are going to use all your materials, all your resources, and then you are going to build. And then install and test will be slightly lesser than design because the final product is done. You are just going to install, and then you are going to test out if it is good to go, right? If the machine is going to work, if the machine is without any flaws and all that. Okay, so from this 100,000, you break it down to design, you break it down to build, and you break it down to install and test. So 24,000 plus 16,000 is 40,000, and you plus with 60,000 is 100,000. So this 100,000 has been breaked into 3, which is going to accumulate to 100,000, right? Because you have break it down from the 100 initial 100,000, you break it down to design, you break it down to build, and you break it down to install and test. Now, develop cumulative budgeted cost. Cumulative means it is progressing, it is ongoing cost, right? Aggregate means that it is the gross cost, and then cumulative means it is something that is ongoing, right? Because when you are doing a project, when you are determining the cost, it is something that is ongoing, because when you stay at each activity, when you come through at each activity, then your cost will be changing. So that is the cumulative budget cost. Now, you need to distribute each total budget cost over work package duration, create the time phased budget, calculate cumulative budgeted cost, provide a baseline against which actual cost and work performance are measured. Okay, you will have a graph chart or a bar chart that is going to show you a baseline on what is your actual cost and your work performance based on whatever is that your planned cost, right? You have your planned cost, the one that you have budgeted, and you have your actual cost, which is the one that is going to incur in the real time. So you will have the baseline, in which you will have the graph to measure on which is the actual cost and what is the budget cost and how is it significant to the project that you have done, right? So when you are figuring out a cumulative budget cost, when you are figuring out um, the actual and the total budgeted cost, you can use it by the periodic table. Okay, you can do it in a table based on period, right? The completion date, the activity, or the total duration of the project, and then you put in all the amount for the individual uh, cost, and then you times it out with the week. Or you can just put in the budget graph based on the cumulative budget cost, and then you have your um, time, the period of time, and then you will figure out the line for your budgeted cost. Okay, and then you will later on implement it with the actual cost line, so that you will figure out what is your earned value. Okay, now that you have figured out your cost, you are going to determine the actual cost, because the one that you did just now is the budgeted cost, the one that you are going to budget, the one that you are going to estimate roughly based on whatever informations, whatever supplier that have gave you the rough figure, right? The budgeted cost is the rough figure that you have estimated. Once you have estimated the rough figure, you will have the actual cost. Okay, when you go into activity 1, when you go into activity 2, all the actual cost will be incurred. So the actual costs collect data regularly for funds actually expended, charge to work package numbers, right? Because this actual cost will happen from each activity to activity. Activity 1, activity 2, activity 3. the labor cost, the material cost, the facility cost, and all that will incur from each activity. So it is going to be collecting data regularly so that you know what is the actual fund that has been expended, or how much have you actually used. And then you charge to work package numbers. Like I said, for activity 1 how much is it going to be, for activity 2 how much is it going to be. Okay, and then you have your committed cost, periodically the assigned portion of total cost to actual cost. Okay, include costs for items that will be paid for later. Your committed cost is something that you have taken the item, or you have booked several items, several equipment, several facilities, and then you are going to pay for it later. Okay, and then you compare actual cost to the budgeted cost. This is what I said. When this graph you have figured out your budget cost, now when you have determined your actual cost, you are going to compare your actual cost to budget cost, so that you will know that are you exceeding the budget, are you staying on the budget, or are you under the budget, right? So you need to figure it out. For you to figure out your actual cost to your budget cost, you will have this graph, right? Here you can see that you have two lines, which is the actual line and the estimated line, right? The actual line to indicate the actual cost that has been incurred, and the estimating line is to indicate whichever cost that was estimated. Now, here you have figured out that this is the actual cost. Okay, earlier you had your budgeted cost, and then now you have your actual cost. Okay, in your end of week 8, your planned cost was 64,000 and your actual cost is 68,000. This means that um, okay, here they are only doing it for 8 weeks. Okay, they are not going for the actual 12 weeks, they are stopping at 8 weeks, right? They are only looking at the actual cost and the budget cost for 8 weeks, right? So for all these 8 weeks the planned cost was 64,000 and the actual cost is 68,000, right? That means the actual cost is 4,000 higher than whatever that they have estimated, because they have estimated to be 64,000. Now the real cost is 68,000. That means 4,000 is higher. The actual cost had been incurring 4,000 higher than whatever that they have planned. Okay, now why did this happen? Why did the 4,000 increase of 4,000 occur? Because when you see here, they only went through the actual and the budget cost in week 8, right? They did not do it in week 4, they did not do it in week 6, but they did it in week 8. And you still have 4 more weeks available, right? You have 11, 10, 9, 10, 11, 12. Their total week is 12, and they only did their comparison, they only did their baseline, they only refer to their baseline to measure their performance in week 8. Where is it? Okay. In week 8. So when you are a good project manager, you are supposed to look for your um, performance. You need to evaluate your graph often. Okay, you cannot wait for 8 weeks to evaluate, then the possibility of the actual cost to be high is very much, right? Because you need to figure out that okay, in week 2 you compare your cost, your actual cost and your budgeted cost, and then you in week 4 you again compare, in week 6 you compare again, and in week 8 you compare again, right? If you are doing the comparison often, then it is easy for you to stay within the budget. Okay, because you are doing it often. If in week 2 there is already a increase in the actual cost, then it is easy for you to control from week 3 onwards. But then when you are doing it in week 8, you are doing the comparison in week 8, you are going through the graph in week 8, then it is difficult for you to control the cost, because you only have 4 more weeks available. You only have 4 weeks for you to complete the overall project. That means it is difficult for you to control later on, because you could have controlled it in the week 2 itself, you could have controlled it in the week 3 itself, but you waited until week 8 to do the comparison, to do your um, graph chart. Okay, you were only doing it, you were only figuring it out in the week 8. Supposedly you could have done it in the week 2 itself, then it is more easier for you to evaluate your cost, for you to go through the baseline, for you to stop from overspending. Now, this amount is more also similar, or more also um, smaller, right? Because your planned cost was 64,000 and your actual cost is 68,000. So the remainings, or the increase of cost is only by 4,000. But in certain case, in certain project, they would be incurring millions, they would be incurring hundreds of thousands, they would be differences in few hundred thousands and all that. So when you are doing a project, ensure that you are doing your uh, your graph, ensure that you are doing your comparison quite often. Do not wait until the last time. So similar, when you are doing your education, right, you seen that a lot of your friends are dropping out. Okay, when you are intending to drop out, you don't drop out in the week 8, week 7, week 6, right? Because you are wasting your time, you are also incurring your cost, because when you come to your class, you need to go to your transport, you need to have your food, you need to travel and all that. And then if you drop in week 6, it is not worthy, right? Because you have incurred a lot of cost that you could not replace again, right? But if you have done the evaluation in week 1, week 2 itself, you have seen that, okay, I'm not comfortable in this education, I don't like this course, I don't like this subject, I don't like this lecturer. You decide it in the week 1, week 2 itself, and then you drop out. Then that makes a lot of sense from you to dropping out in week 7 or week 8, right? So similarly, that is what happens in a project also. If there is a lot of cost being incurred, then it is very important that you notice the cost, you compare the cost often from week 1, week 2 itself. You don't wait for the last minute, not in week 8, not in week 12, so to see the comparison. Then the actual cost might be way too higher than whatever that you planned, and the project sponsor is not going to give you more money, right? If this, the difference is 4,000, the difference is around 5,000, less than 10,000, then you still can negotiate with your project sponsor. But let's say if the difference is 80,000, if the difference is 50,000, then your project sponsor is not going to agree, and it is going to create a lot of unwanted situation, right? So ensure that in every stage of your life, you have decided and you are going through with your milestone achievement, you are going through with whatever your life plan is. Okay, make sure that you are going through it, and you define whatever that you are doing is in the right track. Okay, if it is not in the right track, then you immediately take a proper measure, a proper action. You don't wait for too long, or else it is going to waste a lot of your time, a lot of your money, a lot of your energy in something that you don't want to do. One is determine value of work performed. Okay. Consider a project that involves painting 10 similar rooms over 10 days, one room per day, and for a total budget cost of 2000. This makes the budget 200 per room. At the end of day 5, you determine that 1000 have been spent, which is on track monetarily. The problem is that only 3 rooms have been painted. So, when you determine value of work performed, earned value is the measure that you use. So earned value is the value of the work actually performed, is a key parameter that must be determined throughout the project, right? So now the example is that you have a project to paint 10 rooms. Okay, the room is similar in size, similar in design and all that. So you are going to paint 10 similar rooms. Okay, and the total budget is 2000, 2000 for 10 rooms. Okay, that means that the budget is 200 per room, right? You have 10 similar rooms, your project is to paint 10 similar rooms, you have 2000 as your total budget, and it is $200 per room, right? So that means you have 10 days to do this, right? You have 10 days. You are going to assume that you have 10 days to paint these 10 rooms, and you are having total budget of 2000 and 200 ringgit per room. That means each day you need to paint at least one room, and for one room it is going to be $200, right? So the actual progress is that at day 5 1000 has been spent, which is monetarily correct, right? Because you have 10 days to paint 10 room, and each day is going to be 200. Each day each room is going to be 200. So at day 5 you are supposed to spend 1000. 200 times 5 days is going to be 1000. So 1000 have been spent. That means this has been achieved. This is correct because per day, okay, let me see. Okay, it is difficult for me to write. Okay, so it's okay. Now you see, per day is $200, and you are assuming that you have 10 days. So 200 times 5 days is 1000, and that means that this is monetarily achieved. You have achieved that you are supposed to use only 1000. You did not overspend, you did not underspend. But then the next one is that you have only painted 3 rooms, right? Here you only painted 3 rooms, but you are supposed to, you have 10 rooms to paint. So at day 5 you are supposed to paint 5 rooms, but you only painted 3 rooms. That means this is not achieved, right? This is not achieved because you need to paint 5 rooms, but you only paint 3 rooms. That means your earned value is that you times 0.3, okay, because you have 10. So 10 means you have 1.0. You divide it into 100, okay. So 0.3, which indicates 3 rooms, times 2000, okay, your total budget is going to be 600 ringgit. Your earned value is 600 ringgit or $600. Okay, you can also do this calculation by 3 times $200 per room, right? You can also do this by 3 times 200. It is the same calculation, whichever that you are comfortable with. Okay, so this is going to be 600 as well, right? You can do it per room, or you can do it uh, per whole budget. Okay, if you want to use the whole budget, that means you divide your rooms. Okay, you divide it into hundreds. Okay, you divide it into 10 because you have 10 rooms, so you divide this into 10. 3 over 10 times 2000, you will get $600, or you can create it by per room, which is $200 times 3. You will get the same amount. So your earned value is 600. This means that you are supposed to only use $600 for 3 rooms. You are not supposed to use 1000. You cannot use this 1000. Okay, you are not supposed to use this 1000. You are only supposed to use this 600 for 3 rooms, right? Although it is in day 5, although at day 5 you are supposed to use 1000, but in day 5 you are supposed to paint 5 rooms for 5000. If you have only painted 3 rooms at day 5, that means you are not productive, and you are also going over the budget. You are only supposed to use 600, but you have gone over the budget by 400. Okay, that means you have expended more than the earned value. You have expended $400 more than your earned value, right? So you minus $600, you minus 1000, with $600. So this gives you a overspending of $400. Okay, so in this situation you are supposed to use 1000 for 5 days. Okay, the 1000, and you are supposed to paint 5 rooms, but you only managed to paint 3 rooms. That means you are only supposed to use $600. So but then you have used 1000. That means 1000 minus 600, you have used over limit. You have exceeded your earned value by $400. Okay, I hope you understand. I'm going to repeat again because this is something that is very important for you to understand. So the situation here is that you have 10 days, your project duration is 10 days. You are going to paint 10 rooms, 1 rooms per day. Okay, and your total budget is 2000 for this 10 room. That means 2000 divided by 10 is 200. Your budget per room is $200. Now in day 5, okay, here we said that each day you are going to spend 200. Here it is per room and per day. Okay, it is per room and per day. Okay, it is per room per day. So that means at day 5, $200 times 5, you are supposed to use 1000. Okay, you have used 1000. That means this is achieved. But you only painted 3 rooms, whereas you are supposed to paint how many rooms? You are supposed to paint 5 rooms. Each room is each day. That means at day 5 you are supposed to paint 5 rooms, but you only managed to paint 3. That means this 3 times with your 200 is supposed to be 600. You are only supposed to use earned value of $600, but you have used 1000. That means 1000 minus $600, you have exceeded your earned value by $400. Okay, now the next one is packaging machine project, determine value of work performed. Okay, as I mentioned just now, that you have designed, you have built, you have installed, test, you have the total week of 8. Okay, and this is your earned value, how much you have exceeded your project amount, your project budgeted cost. Okay, you will have it in your table, in your graph, sorry, in your graph. Now when you want to analyze your cost performance, when you want to analyze your earned value, your cost performance, you want to see if it goes over the budget, if it goes under the budget and all that, you have 4 cost related measures: total budgeted cost, cumulative budgeted cost, cumulative actual cost, cumulative earned value. And it is used to analyze project cost performance, plot CBC, CAC, and CEV curves on the same graph, reveal any trends towards improving or deteriorating cost performance. Okay, so this CBC, CAC, CEV is cumulative budget cost, cumulative actual cost, cumulative earned value, right? So you are going to plot all this in the same graph. Here, if you notice, we are going to plot all of it in the same graph. Okay, when you are plotting all of this in the same graph, it is easy for you to see the actual data. It is easier for you to see the trend. Okay, is it going over the budget, is it going under the budget? Okay, if you have budgeted cost, you have your earned value and you have your actual cost, so you can see how much is it going above it, how much is it going under it, right? If your actual cost is higher than your budgeted cost, then it means that you are exceeding your earned value. Your earned value is also going to be higher. So now, packaging machine project analyze cost performance. The figure shows the packaging machine project status. 64 of funds were budgeted to have been spent. 68% of overall funds have actually been spent, and 54% of the total work was completed. Okay, 64% of budgeted budgeted to have been spent. Okay, 64% from the budget have been spent, 68% from the actual cost have been spent, and only 54% of work have been completed. Okay, now let's say if your budget is 100,000, you have used 64,000, you only have the remaining of 36,000 left, but your progress is only 54% completed. You still have a further 46% to complete, but you only have 36,000 left. Okay, let's say if here you are going to assume that 100,000 is your whole budget. Okay, if 100,000 is the whole budget, 64% from 100,000 is 64,000. Okay, you have used 64,000. Okay, you have used 64,000 and your work is only done 54%. You still have 46% more to do, but the money that is going to be remaining is only 36%. Okay, and the percentage of actual spent is 68%. So that means your actual percentage of usage have gone 4% higher than your budget. Okay, your actual cost is 4% higher, because here the percent of actually spent is 68 and your budget is 64. So these have gone 4% higher, and the work completed is only 54%. Okay, now you are going to look at cost performance index. It is the measure of the cost efficiency with which the project is being performed. Cost performance index formula is cumulative earned value divided by cumulative actual cost. Okay, for an example, end of week 8, 64% was 64,000 was the budget, 68,000 was the actual expended, and 54,000 was the earned value. Okay, now the earned value is 54,000. Your cost of your actual cost, your cumulative actual cost is 68,000. So when you divide 54,000 with 68,000, you see that you have 0.79. That means for every $1 spent, okay, for every $1 spent, the actual earned value is only 0.79. Okay, so you are supposed to have more than 1 or equals to 1. Your earned value are supposed to be 1, but here your earned value is only 54,000, but your actual cost is 68,000. That means your earned value is still low. Your project worth is so much low than your cost that has been incurred. So for every 1 ringgit that you have spent, you only have your earned value for 0.79. The remaining 0.21 is not achieved. So your cost is high, but your production of your output is still low by 0.79%. Your value of your project is only 0.79, but the actual spending is 1. So you have lack of 0.21 to indicate your performance, to indicate your worth of the project. And then next you have cost variance, the indicator of cost performance, difference between the cumulative earned value of the work performed and the cumulative actual cost. So your cost variance formula is cumulative earned value minus cumulative actual cost. So when you put it in an example, your 64,000 budget, 68,000 actual expended, 54,000 is the earned value. So now your formula is you minus your earned value with your actual cost. So your answer would be your cost variance would be 14,000. negative 14,000. That means your performance is lack of negative 14,000 in week 8. You have used a lot of money, but your earned value is 54,000 only, and that means your cost variance is negative 14,000. That means your project is not up to the level for 14,000. You are still lacking of negative 14,000 for week 8. Estimate cost at completion. Now you have figured out that your project have gone over budget, you have figured out your project have gone under budget, or whichever way that your project have progressed. Okay, in this situation, in this example, your budget was 64,000, but you have overspent because your actual spend is 68,000. That means you have overspent by 4,000. So when you have overspent, right, now you need to figure out that how much is it going to cost you when you actually complete this project, because in this example your project was for 12 weeks. Okay, based on the previous example that we have used so far, it is for 12 weeks. The project is for 12 weeks, but then they have estimated that in week 8 you have already used 68,000 instead of 64,000. Now you need to figure out that how much is it going to cost you at the completion. Okay, if your actual cost estimate is 100,000, you need to figure out that is it going to be completed with the remaining amount. Okay, if your if your budget is 100,000, right, but your actual usage of money is 68,000. Now the remaining balance that you have is only 32,000, although you are supposed to have 36,000, but you have overspent by 4,000 in your week 8 itself. So you need to figure out that is it possible for you to finish your project with that 32,000, or is it going to be higher? How much higher is it going to be? So that is what you do in the estimate cost at completion. You forecast what the total cost will be at the completion of the project or work package. So forecast means you assume, you figure it out, you have a budgeted view on how much is it going to be in the total cost later on. So for you to figure out your cost at completion, your forecast cost at completion, you have three different methods. Okay, TBC divide by CPI, CAC plus TBC minus CEV, or CAC plus re-estimate of remaining work. Each of the method will figure out one of the event. Okay, the first method, whereby you are going to use your TBC, total budget cost, divide by cost performance index. Okay, the first method assumes that the work to be performed on the remaining portion of the project or work package will be done at the same rate of efficiency as the work performed up to the point. Okay, you are going to assume that it is going to be in the same rate of efficiency. So that means you are going to be slowing down by 4,000, right? Because right now in week 8 you have slowed down by 4,000. So you are going to estimate that the future of this performance is also going to be based on that particular key performance index, right? So this is your key performance index. You have figured out that your key performance index is 0.79, that your actual progress is only 0.79. So this is the one that is showing your efficiency. Your efficiency throughout 8 weeks is 0.79. So that means here, where is it? Is it here? Okay. So here you are going to see that your total budgeted cost divide by CPI. Okay. Here your total budget was 100,000. So you divide by 0.79, which is going to be equals to 126,000. So that means when your project actually completes in week 12, it is going to be 126,582 instead of 100,000. Your initial budget was only 100,000, but since you have delayed, since your earned value is low, it is not 1%, it is not up to 1 point, it is in the point of 0.79. That means they will re-evaluate your efficiency, and it will be evaluated based on your total budgeted cost and your CPI. the CPI that we have found out, that we have figured it out. So your actual cost at completion is estimated at 126,000. That means you are going to go over the budget by 26,582. Okay, the next one will be determining FCAC assumes that regardless of the efficiency rate at the project or the work package had in the past, the work to be performed on the remaining portion will be in line with the budget. So that means they do not mind about your CPI. They don't mind that you have gone over budget or you have been having delays in the previous. Okay, although here it shows that you have been delayed, you have been your progress is only 0.79 in comparison to $1. Your performance is only up to $0.79. Okay, then they do not mind all this, they do not care about all this, they will stick to the initial budget itself. They hope that the next progress will not be aligning or will not be clashing with any of the budget. It is going to be aligned in the actual budget. Okay, it is not going to have any differences, it is not going to have any delays. So the next one would be CAC, cumulative actual cost plus total budgeted cost minus cumulative earned value. Okay, so that means you are going to take the 68,000, which is your actual cost, and then you plus with 100,000 minus 54,000. So you are going to assume that the next progress will not have any delay. It will be actual. It will be actual with whatever that you have planned, right? This 64,000 minus 100,000 is 46,000, right? So you are going to, this 64,000 minus 100,000 is going to be 36,000. So you are going to assume that the earned value here is 54,000. So you are going to minus with 100,000, because you have noticed that the project have been completed for 54%, right? The project is completed 54%. Here 54% of the work have been completed, so the remaining to for you to complete to the 100% is 46% or $46,000. So you are going to take that $46,000 and you plus with your actual cost. So that means you assume that your estimated cost at completion is $114, 114,000, sorry, $114,000. Okay, so that means it is different from what you figure out at first. This is the approach 1, this is the approach 2. Approach 2, you estimated that it is only going to be 14,000 higher than your actual budget, because your actual budget is 100,000. Now it is 114,000. It is going to be only 14,000 higher, whereas in here it is 26,582 higher than your actual budget, which is 100,000. Okay, and then you have your third approach, which is that the third method is for determining the forecasted cost at completion, is to re-estimate the cost for all the remaining work to be performed. Okay, and then add this re-estimate to the cumulative actual cost. Okay, now here you have figured out that your budget is 100,000. Where is it? Okay, sorry, here CAC, this CAC is your 68,000, right? Your CAC is 68,000. So you are going to estimate your actual cost with the re-estimate of remaining work. So here you are going to plus your CAC with the re-estimate of remaining work, your remaining work percentage, which is let me see, which is going to be okay, your remaining work, you re-estimate of remaining work, your remaining work is 46%, right? Because you have completed 54%, your remaining work is 46%. So here in your third approach, for FCAC equals CAC plus re-estimate, you are going to plus your CAC. Your CAC is 68,000, and then you are going to plus it with your 46,000. So here it means because the next slide does not have this approach, so I'm going to show it here. So it is going to be 68,000 plus with 46,000. And your answer is going to be 68 plus 46 is 114. Wait. 114. So for this one and this one, it is going to be same. Okay, it is going to be same for the second approach and the third approach, because if you see the next slide, FCAC equals CAC plus TBC minus CEV. 68,000 plus 100,000 minus 54,000, 46,000 is 114. So here it's the same formula as well, but then it is directly for the re-estimate of remaining work. Here you will go through the TBC minus CEV first to figure out your remaining work, but here you will directly go for the re-estimate of remaining work and you plus it up. So that means in this approach you will figure out that the forecasted of total cost, the estimate cost at completion is going to be 114,000 as well. And then you have the last method, which is to estimate costs at completion, is to complete performance index. So you start with your total performance index, okay, to complete performance index equals to TBC minus CEV and divide by TBC minus CAC. So here you will try to find your TCPI by minusing TBC with CEV, and then you divide by TBC minus CAC. So you will have your two complete performance index is 1.44. Okay. Now make sure you understand all this method. Okay, if you don't understand, we will go through it in week 9 in our physical class next week. Okay, so make sure this is something very important. Make sure you know how to calculate each of the variables, each of the cost. Okay, now you have control cost. Now that you have seen all your completion, all your cost that is going to be incurred in the final stage, okay, the cost that is going to be incurred in the completion stage, you have control cost. Okay, control cost is analyze cost performance on a regular basis, determine which work package require corrective action, decide what specific corrective action, revise the project plan. So when you are doing your cost, right, when I talk about you on the cost, okay, when you are supposed to estimate your cost not only in week 10, but you need to view your performance right from the first week itself. Okay, you should not wait to have the comparison in the 8th week. You're supposed to have the comparison earlier in week 2, week 3 and all that, right? Now if you have done it earlier, if you have done it in week 2 or week 3, then you will be able to control the cost. Okay, in the next activities in week 4, week 5, week 6, week 7 until week 12, you will be able to control your costs, because you don't want to go over budget. You want to make sure that it is within the budget that you have set. So control cost is an element that will allow you to stay within the budget. It will give you the answers to which corrective action you are supposed to take. Which of the activity can you reduce the time, which of the activity can you reduce the cost, Okay, and it will help you to revise the project plan. If the project plan is not going according to what the actual progress is, then you need to revise your project plan, you need to revise your budget. So that is where the control cost will help you. And it will evaluate negative cost variance. Okay, it will help you to have a positive cost variance. Okay, you don't want to have a negative, you don't want to go over budget, you want to stay within the budget or somewhere lesser than the budget. You don't want to go over or you don't want to go under, you want to stay somewhere within the actual budget and a bit lesser from that, you don't want to go over that. Okay, make sure you don't go over the budget. And it is not good for your project manager to estimate something at a very high price or a very high cost to show that you are going under the budget. Okay, it is not done that way. You are supposed to have a significant amount of cost which is somewhere in the mid of the actual cost that you have determined. Okay, and it helps you to take corrective actions. Near term activities, activity with large cost estimate. If you have a certain activity with large cost estimate, then this will help you to reduce that particular cost. Okay, you can break it down in terms of the duration first, and then you reduce by the cost that is going to be incurred. Okay, and it is going to reduce cost of activities, because when you have figured out, okay, this duration we can cut down the time, we need to do it in 5 weeks instead of 6 weeks or 7 weeks, right? If you figure out that this activity can be done in uh, done quickly, this activity can be done quickly, this activity can be done in in a reduced duration, then you can reduce the cost of that particular activity, because when you reduce your duration, then ultimately you will reduce the cost of the activities, and it will evaluate the trade-off cost and scope. Okay, you will figure out how you are going to manage in terms of your cost control, and how you are going to achieve your objective without interrupting any of the activities, without interrupting any of the key activities in your project, but still you are going to achieve that final output, you are going to achieve that final project, you are going to complete the final project. Okay, so that is what a control cost will do. And then you need to manage your cash flow. In order for you to control, in order for you to control your cost, you need to manage your cash flow. If you have 100,000, you need to plan your budget within that 100,000 only. You should not exceed the 100,000, you should not go way too much than that 100,000, so that you know that this activity is, if your budget is only 50,000, you're only going to manage the cash for 50,000. You don't want to go higher, you don't want to go lower. You manage your cash based on the activity, based on the requirement, and based on the key items. You don't focus much on the unimportant task or unimportant activities. Your focus should only be on the key items in that particular project. So ensure that cash comes in faster than it goes out. Okay, your account receivables should not have a lot of pending. Okay, you need to have your account receivables up to date, and it should be faster. You cannot have the time period of 30 days for them to repay you. Okay, you need to have a shorter time period for the repayment. Okay, and you negotiate your payment terms. Okay, your payment terms should not be way too much. Okay, 30 days, 60 days, you need to reduce it into 15 days or 7 days, so that you will have your cash in hand. Okay, you don't want to um, borrow somewhere else, you don't want to have loans and all that, you want to manage the cash that you have. So it is important that you know how to manage it in a way that you always have some money left for you. Okay, so you negotiate on payment terms, provide a down payment, make equal monthly payments, provide frequent payments, and then avoid only one payment at end of project. You want your payments to be faster, but you hold pupils payment first. Okay, you align with companies, your or you have relationship with companies that is going to allow you to have higher payment terms. Okay, so that you will have more cash in your hand than you giving out to other people, right? So you avoid uh, frequent payments, and you make sure that you only have a certain payments to make. You don't make a lot of payments at every project. You make certain payments only. Okay, and then the certain payments you delay it for the next one, but ensure that the payment terms is based on whatever that you have agreed, and make sure that you have agreed to a wider payment term so that you will have more cash in hand to control the situation. Okay, and you control outflow of cash. You manage your inflow, you have a lot of cash coming in, and you manage your outflow. Don't give too much to other people, don't give too much to your contractors, don't give full payments one shot. Okay, you ensure that you are delaying your payment based on the due date. If your due date is in December, then even if you have the money in March, do not pay it yet. You wait for December so that you will be able to handle other tasks, other activities in a smoother way. Okay, and then you have cost estimating for information system. Common errors in estimating cost. Okay, when you are doing an estimation, you will have several errors, and these errors is based on underestimating the work time necessary to complete, requiring rework to meet the user requirements, underestimating growth in the project scope, not anticipating new hardware purchase, making correction to flaw in excess of the contingency planning, changing the design strategy, and increasing resources to fast track phase or of the SDLC. Okay, so all this is the common error when you are estimating your cost. When you are estimating your cost, you don't know the right person, the right supplier, you don't know the actual activity, so you just estimate that this activity is going to be 10 weeks, whereas the activity can be done in 5 weeks. Okay, all this is the kind of error that will happen when you are estimating your cost. So make sure you go through this. And this is the information system example. Okay, estimated activity cost. It is the similar one as we have seen earlier, right? So you have your person in charge, you have your work day, you have your labor cost, your material cost, your travel cost, and then you have your total cost. And then you have your project management information system. Store all costs associated with each resource. Calculate the budget for each work package. Determine cost for the entire project. Define different rate structures for each resources, and analyze cost performance. Okay, all costs associated with each resource in a project can be stored in a software, right? When you are doing a calculation, you no longer use a paper pen calculator to do that. You want to store all your information in the project management information system, right? You are going to use your Excel, you are going to use your softwares, you are going to use your budgeting softwares and all that, for you to store all this, for you to calculate, for you to determine, for you to define, and for you to analyze your overall performance. Okay, so that is all for this chapter. It is quite a long chapter and it is more on the calculation part. So make sure you understand all the formulas involved, and make sure that you understand how each cost is different. The actual cost, the budgeted cost, okay, your cost performance index. Try to figure out what each of it means, try to remember it, try to memorize it, and also make sure that you have memorized all these formulas. Okay, whichever part that you don't understand, we can go through it in week 9. I'll be more than willing to discuss with you, so that to ensure that you understand all of these calculations, all of these methods, all of these formulas that is involved. So, and as usual, make sure you go through the critical success factor and the summary for you to understand better on the overall topic that we have discussed. So that's all for today, and thank you for listening. I'll see you all next week. Thank you.